Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with random reviews from the Overflow Room. And we're in the letter V, plus sort of like other interesting things that I have sitting around here. But we're going to do the next V, and it's Verdi. Verdi, like Wagner, is a lot. Although Verdi accumulates more than Wagner does, actually, in my collection, because Wagner, first of all, wrote less. I mean, he just wrote less, and there's a limit to how much duplication I can like tolerate. I mean, it's a big limit, but there's still a limit. Whereas Verdi, I think, is just unbelievably fun, and I love everything he did, just about. And so I have lots of it. I have duplicates, I have extras, I have, oh my. So this is going to take a while. Brace yourself. We'll see how quickly we can go through it all. Wow, what great stuff. So get ready. I have 3 large piles here, and there we go. Are you ready? Trovatore, Pavarotti, Sutherland, and Marilyn Horne, and Gyarov, and Ingvar Vixel. And this is Il Trovatore with like ornamentation and stuff from like the Paris version and God knows what, Le Trouvière, it was called or something. So it's really rather nifty. And so there it is, and we'll start putting these away. It's on Decca. The Verdi Requiem with Gardner, one of Gardner's best explorations of later music. Very, very exciting. The fact that it's on period instruments is utterly irrelevant. It's wonderfully sung with a very good cast. I mean, you've got soloists, Luba Organasova and Sophie von Otter, Luca Canonici, and Alastair Miles, along with the 4 sacred pieces. And, you know, the Monteverdi people. And there's Finster, who makes her usual appearance during these things. Hey, Finster. What's doing? La Traviata, the Toscanini one. I kept these separately from like that Toscanini big box. I mean, I have the big box thing up there too, because I just liked having this packaging and presentation. Richard Tucker sings Verdi. Why shouldn't he? And the Requiem with Eugene Ormandy in Philly, with Lucine Amara, Maureen Forrester, Richard Tucker, and George London, along with the Rossini Stabat Mater, with the New York Phil and Thomas Shippers, with Martina Arroyo, who's like fabulous, and Beverly Wolf, and Tito Del Bianco, and Justino Diaz. You know, these Ormandy choral things were grossly underrated. They're actually pretty good for the most part. Berlioz' Requiem was surprisingly good too. And Mrs. Solemnis and all that stuff, you know, it's been done so many times by so many other people. And we all witlessly poo-poo Ormandy because the chorus wasn't always great. It was for the Temple University Glee Club or whatever, but some of them were really pretty good. Really very solid. Okay, Attila. You know, there's the big box of the complete Verdi operas. I have that upstairs. So these individual ones, or some of them anyway, moved downstairs. So here's Attila with Lamberto Gardelli and Macbeth. Oh, this is the original 1847 version on opera rara, which you've got to have. I mean, everyone's got to have that. And this is a live Otello from Opera Dura, which Bob Levine, my opera guy and guru in all things operatic at ClassicsToday.com, swears by. It's with Domingo Freni Cappuccilli and like other people like that. Who's Iago? Yes, Cappuccilli, yeah. And it's with Carlos Kleiber and Milan from La Scala in 76. That was like a classic. Some of them don't sound too crappy either. Let's see, Aida. This is another one of those operadoras with Martina Arroyo, because I collect Martina Arroyo. She did not make nearly as many records as she should have. She was an absolutely extraordinary singer, and particularly one of the great Verdi sopranos. A lot of people like her better than Leontine Price. I don't like to make the comparisons, but she's amazing. And this is with Abbado and Milan from 1972. So, you know, generally speaking, I tried to collect. I had an Arroyo period when I just tried to collect her stuff. And we have the original St. Petersburg version of La Forza del Destino with Martina Arroyo and Kenneth Collins and Peter Glossop. And all this is one of those opera rara things. And there it is. Early versions. And the Giulini Verdi Requiem, which is just phenomenally great. And, you know, I mean, it was always great, but the EMI recording is great, but that recording kind of drowns out the chorus and has some tape saturation and whatnot. Well, this one's in mono, so you know, that's one of several, by the way. There's another one too, a stereo one that sounds considerably better. Verdi, Louisa Miller, the classic Caballé Pavarotti in this particular packaging. You know, so and here is the other Giulini Verdi Requiem from BBC Music. This one's from 1963, and this is the stereo one, and it sounds really good. All things considered, it's a broadcast, but it's very, very good sound, and the performance is thrilling, and it actually has better balances than that studio recording on EMI. I mean, it's not as overall as opulent sonically and impactful, but it's really awfully good. Then we got Falstaff. This is a very good Falstaff. It's on Naxos with Domenico Trimarchi and Roberto Servilli and other people. I can't go through all the casts. It'll drive us crazy. And let's see. Music from Italian opera with Toscanini. I just throw this under Verdi because it's easier to keep it there. And the Verdi Requiem, yay, with Riccardo Muti. I love this performance. It's just exciting as hell and out Toscanini's Toscanini. And it's thrilling with Renata Scotto and Agnes Balza and Veriano Lucchetti and Evgeny Nestorenko in the Philharmonia. Now, the sonics were never great here. I mean, they're sort of wooden and maybe a little shallow and screechy. I don't care. The performance is hot beyond belief. And this coupling, and this particular twofer, has the Cherubini Requiem in C minor, which is one of Moody's great recordings, all of his Cherubini. Then we've got Mbalo and Mascara with Bergonzi and McNeil and Birgit Nielsen and Sylvia Stallman and Tom Krause. This is one of the great ones with Schulte conducting. It's here. It sort of like was hard to get for a while. So when I saw it, I grabbed it, and it's still sort of hard to get. Birgit Nielsen was not your average Verdi singer, but Emilia, isn't it Emilia in this opera? Or Emilia Leonora? I never get them straight. Yeah, it's Emilia. Emilia's a real dramatic soprano role, heavy soprano role, surprisingly so. And Birgit Nielsen is really, really good in that. The Verdi Requiem, Te Deum and other goodies with Toscanini. It's got to be up there. And let's see, we're finishing row number 1. These are all roughly the same. Macbeth, Cheryl Milnes, Krista Ludwig, Carlo Cazuta with Carl Böhm from 1970. I just couldn't resist because it was Carl Böhm. And I like Krista Ludwig. I mean, she was such a nice person. I loved her. I knew her quite well. And boy, so I got it to hear her. It's kind of unusual. And another Macbeth, Maria Callas with Victor de Sabata. You know, this is one of those things that Callas people collect. I don't actually ever listen to it. The Traviata with Anna Moffo, Richard Tucker and Robert Merrill, a famous Traviata before Anna Moffo's voice went, down the crapper. Let's see, Verdi Heroines with Leontine Price, Rigoletto with Sinopoli. And Neil Shikoff and Renato Brusson and Adita Gruberova and Robert Lloyd and Birgitta Fassbender and people like that. I got it just because, Sinopoli's Verdi was always kind of weird and kind of interesting. Don Carlo with Giulini. Yeah, one of the great Verdi recordings. The 5-act version. It's in Italian, not in French, but we don't care. It's marvelous. It's got, Domingo Caballé, Verret, Milnes, Raimondi. I mean, just an amazing cast. So that's fun. And now we're in row 2. Falstaff with Toscanini. You'll notice that none of these are in any particular order, and I don't really care. Nabucco with Tito Gobi and Elena Souliotis, who was, the new Callas until she wasn't. And I mean, I love Nabucco. I mean, it's got Abigail, who was originally taken by Giuseppina Strepponi, who became Verdi's second wife. It's just a voice-wrecking role. It's infinitely fun. And Anna Russell, by the way, did a hilarious opera description of Nabucco. And you should hear it if you don't know it. There's that one. And then we've got the other Macbeth with Giuseppe Taddei and Birgit Nielsen, again, as Lady Macbeth, and Thomas Shippers. She's not as good as Lady Macbeth as she was in Unballo, but still, I mean, it's one of those things. It's nice to have, especially if you like Birgit Nielsen. Giovanna d'Arco with Caballé, Domingo and Milnes, and James Levine, one of Levine's early recordings, and it's already sort of a classic. It's on EMI. It wasn't on RCA. La Traviata with Scotto, Krause, and Brusson with Riccardo Muti. Scotto was past her prime, but it seems that, Violetta is, as with Callas, was a great role for a Kunstdiva with a partially erect voice because she's dying of TB anyway. So as long as she can sound like, she's suffering, she can get away with a little screechiness on top. And then we've got this ballo with Price, Bergonzi, and Merrill, and Verret, and Rary Grist, and Ezio Flagello. This is with Leinsdorf, and it's one of his great opera recordings, absolutely. Maybe the reference version for Un ballo in Maschera, possibly. I'm not going to get into an argument with you folks over it. And then we've got the Muti Forza with Domingo and Franey and others. It's on EMI. That's an Overflow performance. There's so many other Forzas that I think are better. And the original Callas Traviata, this was the one that was on Cetra, and it's now on Warner. In this life, it'll appear, and it has already appeared in every 10,000 Callas boxes. Aida with Tebaldi, Bergonzi, and Carrion, that famous one. The Verdi Requiem with Bernstein, surprisingly good. Again, another one people don't talk about, with Martina Arroyo, Josephine Visi, Placido Domingo, and Rogero Raimondi with the London Symphony Orchestra and Chorus. And it's first rate. It really is a thriller. I don't understand why people don't ever mention that one. They should. And let's see. Okay, Macbeth with Warren Leonie Rieseneck. That's the reason to have this one. Carlo Bergonzi, again, who's phenomenal, and Jerome Hines is Banquo, with Eric Leinsdorf and the Met Orchestra. And, until Moody and Abato came along and did it, that was the Macbeth to have. And it still is wonderful to have for Rieseneck alone. The Aida with Zinka Milanov, yes, Jussi Björling, Fedora Barbieri, Leonard Warren, Jonelle Purley of the Rome Opera Orchestra and Chorus, 1955. This was the one that, if you got the Met's Organ Opera News or whatever that thing was, they always recommended anything with Zinka Milanov, above all else, because she was a Met stalwart. Otello, this is the Levine Domingo Scotto Milnes, and it's little tiny budgie incarnation there. It's still one of the reference recordings for Otello. Simone Boccanegra, Tito Gobi, Victoria de Los Angeles, Boris Christoph, and Giuseppe Camporo with Gabriele Santini. This is with the Opera di Roma on EMI. Yeah, that was the Boccanegra to get before Claudio Abato's came out. And then Schulte's came out, and Abato's was still the Boccanegra to get. So don't worry. This is one of those Met productions. It's unbelievable. Il Trovatore live performance in '61. Leontine Price and Franco Corelli. Yeah, baby. Amazing screaming and yelling. And Ines is Teresa Stratas. It's a tiny, tiny role of Ines. And it's just beyond belief. Irene Dallas, remember her? She was the Kundry in the Knappertsbusch Parsifal. Some cast, really. And this is the Schulte Vienna Verdi Requiem, the better of his two recordings of it, with Sutherland, Horn, Pavarotti, and Talvala, which is really, because so many great people have done that work. It's sort of amazing. I don't know why I have this. Oh, yes. This is the Otello with Sabagno, because it's from 1931, so why not? And then I have the Rigoletto with Sabagno from 1930, 27, 28, with Piazza, Pagliucci, Folgar, Baccaloni, and people you've never heard of, but opera people have heard of them. So opera people can, tell you, reel off these names and pronounce them correctly and make you feel like a fool. But I never feel like a fool. I'm beyond shame at this point in my career. The Carillon Falstaff, his first one, with Gobi, Alva, Panerai, Schwarzkopf, Anna Moffo, Nan Merriman, Fedora Barbieri. It's just wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Much better than his remake. Yes, it is. The Salzburg Trovatore with Bastianini and Price and Simeonato and Franco Corelli, again, in Carillon. It's like, you see these casts and you've got to hear it, whether it turns out to be any good or not, which sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't. And then the Toscanini Otello with Ramon Vinet and Hervanelli and Valdegno and other people like that. And you've got to have a Toscanini Otello because he played in the premiere in the cello section. So, I mean, that's like a major deal. Rigoletto, the Giullini one with Cappuccilli, Cotrubash, and Domingo. Definitely one of the great Rigolettos. Another one. Aida with Toscanini and all the people we've already just talked about. Let's not get crazy here. The Victor de Sabata Verdi Requiem with Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, Aurelia Dominguez, Giuseppe De Stefano, Cesare Siepi, and bits of other opera things with Victor de Sabata. And it's a classic because it's de Sabata, who has just a legendary reputation, which as far as I'm concerned could just as well stay legendary because it doesn't thrill me. Grand opera for orchestra, Verdi without words, with Eric Kunzel. Verdi without words is always fun. That stuff is just fun stuff. A great Verdi Requiem with Muti and Chicago. This is one of the great ones. Muti always did this work fabulously. And it's with Barbara Fridolin and Olga Borodina and Maria Zeffiri and Ildar Abrarazakov. Yeah, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra and Chorus. Great sound, stunning, absolutely stunning. I mean, Muti, does this like nobody else. He really does. And then we've got, the Fricoy Verdi Requiem and with the Rossini Stabat Mater. This is one of these DG duo things. Now, there are two Fricoy Verdi Requiems. One is live, and one is the studio one. And this is, let me see, it's mono, so it's the studio one, I believe. But it doesn't matter because I still have to do the Fricoy box, and we'll sort it all out later. Hi, girls. Here are the cats. They're back. Otello with Carian, Delmonico, Tibaldi, and Aldo Protti, who everyone always dumps all over him as Iago. One of you commentators said, well, he's not all that bad. No, he isn't. It's all relative, isn't it? You got to make the comparisons. And Falstaff with Bernstein, with Fish Dieskau, Regina Resnick, and Rolando Panerai, and Graziella Scuti, and Schuti, or whatever her name was, and other people like that, with Vienna Phil. And that was fun. And we're almost done with Verdi, so hang in there. We're really getting there. La Forza del Destino. This is one of those historical suckers from like the dawn of time. 1941, with Maria Cornelia and Carlo Tagliabue and Giuliano Massini and Ebbe Stignani as Prezio Silla, going rataplan, rataplan, rataplan until you want to kill her. And we've got the Schulte Don Carlo, which competes with the Giullini Don Carlo. I think the Giullini's better. But this is with Bergonzi, Tibaldi, Giura, Fischer-Dieskau, Grace Bumbry, Marty Talva. It really depends on who you prefer. But the sound is better in the Giullini, too. I will say that. But that's with Covent Garden people. Maria Callas, the legendary Covent Garden performance of June 1958 of La Traviata. And it's legendary. And I'm just so tired of the Callas Traviata business. The later's Levine Aida with Aprile Milo, Placido Domingo, Dolores Zajic, James Morris, and Sam Raimi. This is worth having for the Amneris of Dolores Zajic, who is fabulous in the role. I saw her do it like a few times, several times, and she was amazing, just amazing. They ought to rename the opera Amneris. Would have been better. The Toscanini Ballo with Jan Pierce and Hervanelli and Robert Merrill and Clara May Turner and Virginia Haskins and people like that. That goes there, and here we are, the last bit. The second Sutherland Traviata. You've got Sutherland, Pavarotti, and Matteo Maniguera and Della Jones and people like that with Richard Bonning, and we all know how that works. She pronounces sometimes. The Verdi Requiem with Leinsdorf. And this you have because you've got Birgit Nielsen, Lily Chukasian, Carlo Bergonzi, Ezio Flagello, great. And you get Minotti's The Death of the Bishop of Brindisi, along with Arnold Schoenberg, the interlude and song of the Wood Dove with Lily Chukasian, all with Boston and Leinsdorf. It's really a wonderful lineup of stuff. And then there's another Verdi Requiem with Toscanini. This is the live thing from when was it? Total Times, Carnegie Hall, 1940. November 1940 with Milanov, Castagna, Björling, and Moscona. It's a legendary performance, so I have it because I'm into legends. And Verdi Overtures and Preludes with Carillon. This is a wonderful collection. You've got like all of them. It's amazing. It's 2 hours of Verdi orchestral stuff. Overtures and Preludes on DG, which is now one of those massive Carillon box things. The Beverly Sills Traviata. She was also over the hill when she did this, but she was a great singer. I mean, a Kunst diva, an artistic singer, someone who really got into the role. So it's with Sills, Getta, Panerai, and it was recorded, it sounds like, in some sort of giant echo chamber, if my memory serves, with Aldo Ciccato and the Royal Phil. Traviata seems to be, almost jinxed that way, isn't it? It's one of those pieces that, well, we'll talk about that shortly, won't we? And then we've got La Battaglia di Legnano. I mean, this is with Fernando Previtali from 1951. I have this because it's with Caterina Mancini and Rolando Panerai and Amedeo Berdini. But I have this because it's a historic mono recording. It tells me that. See, it says so. There weren't that many versions of early Verdi back then, so it was sort of curiosity. It was on Cetra also, along with that early Callas Traviata. And last but not least, Otello with Vickers, Franey, and Glossop. This is the one that in the Carillon Opera Box says it's Placido Domingo, that I stupidly read off going through, the gigantic box of stuff, and you all immediately jumped on me, and rightly so. I said, no, it's Vickers. It's Vickers. That is correct. So that, my friends, is the Overflow Verdi. There is a ton of non-Overflow Verdi upstairs, and I'm not even an opera guy. So it just goes to show, right? But there's just so much great stuff, and it's worth hearing and enjoying. And I do hear it, and I do enjoy it, and so will you. At least however much of it you could absorb. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.